Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 44, which is called Amado. Overall, this chapter was fine. It was just not particularly amazing for me. I don't think it was particularly great, and I also don't think it was particularly bad. I think the main criticism would of course be that they directly teased at the end of last chapter that we get like Naruto and Koji versus Jigen, and in here we set it up, he's walking into the room, but we don't get it. And we just do this other thing, which is still interesting, but when it's a monthly manga and you basically, skip over a plot point for a chapter, it just feels really, really bad that, who knows. We may not be coming back to that Naruto and Koji thing until like 2 chapters from now. It's not even necessarily a thing where we know we're getting it next time out. So there's just a lot of those things. And then I think this was one of those chapters where once again the bad pacing problem that this manga has came back into play quite heavily, of just a lot of panels and pages that just didn't really kind of mean all that much, didn't really use their page count all that well, and all building up to another thing which is mainly more interesting once it gets explained. Like the Amado stuff here is interesting, but until we get the explanation, it's just like, okay, I'll just keep waiting. And that's what this chapter felt like. It was just, here's some stuff, okay, here's some minor takeaways, I'm waiting for next month. And that's most of my general thoughts on this chapter. So let's just get straight into going through it page by page. So we open up immediately. Naruto wakes up in hospital, and we get to see Hinata, Himawari. Once again, I think the art has drastically improved, but this artist just does not know how to draw Hinata. So that remains my major criticism with the artist, of just like, what? That's meant to be Hinata, really? Okay. But anyway, we just get the idea of like, oh, I made it, I'm alive, everyone's there next to him, even Boruto. And then we get Kawaki in his room getting a kind of appraisal here. And he's basically told that your body is attempting to reject the cybernetic arm here, the kind of chakra-powered arm. And he's told that your body's physical functions will keep declining bit by bit, and your chronic muscular pain will likely persist as well. Sumire is about to give him some painkiller, but he refuses it. And they just talk about, there might be some appropriate treatment, but there's nothing we can really do right now because we don't understand your body. And Kawaki just says, it's all right, my body's been made not to die so easily anyway, for better or for worse. And Boruto comes in and cuts it off. So there's this setup of okay, for some reason Kawaki's body is failing in some way, or else it's having a bad reaction at this point to the replacement arm. I'm not exactly sure what they're setting up. Maybe it's some reverse thing with the fact that he's a vessel, that because he's a vessel that doesn't have anything in it, it's becoming a problem. I don't really know. But so Boruto just tells Kawaki that Naruto has woken up, and he's happy about that. And then we cut to Shigadai and Naruto talking, which is basically just explaining what happened. Shigadai has to explain that, oh yeah, the kids went off on their own completely. They just jumped into enemy territory and, took everyone out and so on. And Naruto's quite impressed. He's like, seriously, that's big stuff. And Shigadai's just Shikamaru, is all we cannot condone such a rash act. They could have all died. And Naruto, obviously, speaking sense, he's seen the series, Genin acting rashly. So things haven't changed since we were rats. It's like a Konoha tradition. And Shikamaru's like, yeah, this is no laughing matter. But anyway, they're still under threat, and we just kind of move on. So finally, we cut over to what last time teased that it would realistically just be Naruto and Koji going in to fight Jigen, is now Amado coming in doing stuff. I didn't really get the impression from last chapter that they were setting up anything necessarily with Amado outside of that he knew Kashin Koji was going to do this, but now it's that they're all in this together, seemingly. So he has a big, pack on his back with all this stuff, and he says, I only need one section of cell fragments and the digitalized data aggregate. The work itself can be done using their equipment. So I'm assuming this is his version of basically saying, I've taken all of the data that I have on Kara or something along those lines, and that he can do something with that research on the equipment that they have in Konoha, because that's what he's planning to do. So Kashin Koji summons Steam Toad, so that's pretty interesting. We've seen this before. This is another one of those things that is like, is Kashin Koji somehow Jiraiya in some way? And the Toad summoning obviously sort of adds to that in a way. And the fact that it's a steam toad, so it has all these sort of pipes on it, gives you the impression of like, oh, it's almost like a sort of mechanical style toad. And then this chapter basically sort of confirms that Kashin Koji is also like, mechanical in some way. I think we knew all of the Kara members had the sort of like nanobot type thing in them that like kind of heals them. The scientific ninja tools inside their bodies, like that he has that. But they also sort of, I think, double down on the like tease that maybe Kashin Koji is more like Delta in some ways, but we'll get into that. So Amado gets inside of the Toad, but this is when Delta arrives and basically is like, you're going somewhere without Jigen's permission. I'm not going to turn a blind eye if you're going to commit mutiny. Kashin Koji is about to fight Delta when Amado is just like, actually, no need to bother. Time to go to sleep, Delta. And Delta just basically shuts down completely. Kashin Koji notes this and is like, oh, that seems to be an emergency shutdown code. I suspect I've been similarly programmed. So there's the line that hints that, like, okay, so there's some programming part of Kashin Koji, whether that be referring to the scientific ninja tools in his body or the fact that, like Delta, he is like almost like entirely cyborg in some way. We'll see what exact way they go with that, but I think that sort of almost has you like lean more down the Jiraiya path, because like obviously like Jiraiya was killed, like badly injured. He would need to be reconstructed as a cyborg, I suppose, to function again. So maybe that's where they're going with this. I'm not exactly sure, but we'll see. So anyway, he just says, when you arrive, follow the wall to the right. Happy hunting. And Amado just says, good luck to you as well. So Kashin Koji does the reverse summoning, which sends the Steam Toad into Konoha, basically just outside the wall. And we see him get out of the Toad, and then he's about to do something with Konoha. And then we quickly cut back to Kashin Koji, who just gets up and is about to walk in, I suppose, to confront Jigen. So again, that's where we leave that tease for now of like, we were basically with Kashin Koji in the exact same point as last time, except there's all this other stuff going on with Amado, and maybe a slight more tease about, who Kashin Koji is, what is he, and all this sort of stuff. Then we cut back to the hospital, this time with Sarada, and Sasuke and Sakura are in there with her, along with Mitsuki actually, because of the way that they do the scene. So this is Sarada explaining to Sasuke what happened with Boruto and the karma mark, and that this time the pattern was different, and that he grew a horn-like thing on his head. And then she confirms to us, one of the big talking points from last chapter, that his right eye was a Byakugan. So it wasn't the Jogan or anything like that. It's just that when he goes into that mode, his right eye becomes a Byakugan. So that was pretty interesting. But Sasuke, of course, ponders this because he was very concerned about Boruto previously, with the whole idea of like, let me know if anything changes with the karma mark. Now something has changed, combined with the fact that he's encountered someone who's done this before. So he's explained here, he took down in a flash the enemy that we couldn't beat as a team. He had unbelievable power, as if he wasn't Boruto. It was like Otsutsuki. Sasuke says Otsutsuki. And as he remembers, of course, seeing, kind of an Otsutsuki with the horn. So He's like, right, he looked like them. And Sarada's like, you mean like Momoshiki and Kinshiki? What is going on with Boruto's body? Is he alright? Sakura sort of calms her down. And basically, you need to recover, otherwise you won't be able to help Boruto when he needs it. Sasuke does say, you did well, just take it easy now. And she says, okay, Dad. At this point, Mitsuki speaks to Sasuke and says, may I have a word? And they basically have a conversation where, of course, Mitsuki, Boruto is Mitsuki's son. That's what he looks to be the light in a way in his life. So we always get the idea that Mitsuki's been watching Boruto very closely, and he notices that. So he wants to know the full extent of this as well. He says to Sasuke, plus, the Kara member that we fought said this of Boruto, that he's Otsutsuki Momoshiki's vessel. And this is a big kind of like reveal to Sasuke of like, the wording of this kind of begins to connect stuff together. So Momoshiki's will still exists inside the Karma and is trying to take over Boruto's body, something like that. Mitsuki says, it doesn't seem like Boruto himself is aware of this, at least as of right now. Sasuke says, I was suspicious about Momoshiki's motives for granting Boruto such a power, but it makes sense if it's something that allows him to resurrect himself. This allows Mitsuki to figure out that, so that's what Boro meant by vessel. If your conjecture is correct, then Kawaki was also etched with a karma to allow for some other Otsutsuki's resurrection. Yeah, and logic would point to it being the one who gave Kawaki his karma. That would be Jigen, but to my eyes, it looked like Jigen himself was a vessel for yet another being. And Mitsuki's like, huh? So this is the confusing point with the karma. It feels like we know most of the details about like the basic idea of how it works, except the fact that two people effectively have what seems to be the same karma mark. And it either speaks to the fact that we fundamentally misunderstand how the karma mark relates to the essence of the Otsutsuki that is part of the vessel, and how that exactly works. In that, obviously, I don't think it's meant to be a case where there's like two people with the same karma mark, which is the case with Jigen and Kawaki. So it's like Kawaki having the karma mark, he got it in a very different way to the way Boruto got it. So how exactly does that work? They're teasing the idea of like, oh wait, is there another Otsutsuki that they're talking about? Or are they eventually going to figure out, someone's going to figure it out maybe a little bit too late, that Kawaki is the next vessel for Ishiki Otsutsuki, who is Jigen. He revealed that to like Naruto and Sasuke in that fight. So it's one of those things where like, does this actually reveal anything to us? I don't think so. I think a lot of people have been putting this kind of logic together ourselves. So this just feels like a recap of what we already know, rather than saying anything particularly new, other than the fact that like, okay, so Jigen had a karma mark and was a vessel for an Otsutsuki. How does that relate to Kawaki also being a vessel? Does that mean he has an Otsutsuki inside him or not? That's probably what it leads them to have to try and figure out. Then we cut to Inojin, Chocho, and Shikadai doing some training. We see Chocho do human juggernaut or human boulder, whatever way you want to call it. Inojin uses cartoon beast mimicry and creates this bird. Shikadai kind of, I guess he attaches his shadow to the shadow of the drawing or something like that, and stops that, so he gets Inojin down on the ground. Then Chocho goes to attack Shikadai, but he dodges it. And this is when Amado decides to reveal himself. That was splendid, truly magnificent. A new generation of Inoshika Cho. It's my lucky day. By the way, would any of you happen to have a light? So they're immediately like, who are you? What's going on here? Shikadai does the shadow possession jutsu on him. But Amado just pulls like a tuning fork out of his sleeve and sort of taps it, which sends out this sound wave that kind of stops the jutsu that he's under and seemingly reverses it. Shikadai says he hijacked my shadow paralysis jutsu, which I think is meant to sort of imply that like it kind of backfired on Shikadai and like seized him up temporarily rather than just like he negated my jutsu. But anyway, he walks over to Shikadai and puts some drug in him, as he says it's a benign drug, and then he puts this collar around Shikadai's neck, and he says, however, whether you survive past today is up to your father. So he wants to talk to Shikamaru. So Inojin contacts his mother, Ino, of course, via the Yamanaka clan's, of course, communication jutsu. What's the matter? Where are you? And he informs that, like, okay, Shikadai's in big trouble, and can you put me in touch with Master Shikamaru right now? So we then cut back over to Naruto, who's now up, going into Kawaki's room, and he's just, I suppose, glad to see Naruto is up. And he thanks Kawaki for going to such great lengths to rescue him, but Kawaki just says you should give your thanks to Sarada and Mitsuki. And Boruto, of course, interjects and says, hey, what about me? And he just says, you should have, be quiet, this is a hospital. But anyway, Shikamaru again just kind of says, we're going to assign even tighter guard around you. You're still going to live with Naruto, but your range of motion will be even more restricted than before. He's fine with that, and this is when Ino contacts Shikamaru. There's an emergency. He's been captured by a man claiming to be part of Kara. A bomb's been strapped around his neck, so the collar was a bomb. So the guy's name is Amado, Sai, and a few others are right there right now. And we cut to Moegi using an Earth-style jutsu to sort of trap Amado, but Sai's like, no, don't do it. This is when Amado, still in control of the situation, just says that over there on the tree I placed an identical but different one of these collars on the tree. Now I'm going to demonstrate it now. I'm going to trigger it. So he just says, boom, it blows up that side of the tree, and he just gets across the point that even if you completely restrict me, once I can talk, I can immediately kill Shikadai whenever you want. So you're not in control of the situation. I am still. So Moegi is forced to undo her jutsu, and they have to listen to what he has to say. And he just says that he wants to talk to Shikamaru, and Shikamaru answers. Ino connects them via the Yamanaka clan jutsu, and he basically just says, it's a matter that I would normally want to ask Lord Hokage. However, I believe he was taken down by Jigen and is unavailable. And I hear you're the one with decision-making authority in this case. That's why. So, it confirms to us, this makes complete sense, that Amado is not aware of what's happened with Boro. Because, again, it was at the end of the last chapter, after Boro's defeat, where Amado said that, Boro's guarding the Hokage, so he doesn't have the information that Naruto's been freed yet, so he thinks Shikamaru is the second in command in the village, which is the case, but Naruto's back now. So, Shikamaru asks Ino to link everyone together, bring in Katasuke and Naruto into the kind of call as well, and Naruto introduces himself, and this is where we get it. Last page, basically. Lord Hokage, you sound well. I'm glad. Now it's even more worth it to have risked my life to come here. Let me get straight to the point. I, Amado, wish to defect to Konoha. And everyone is shocked by that. And he says, in return, I offer intel to you on Kara, Jigen, Ten Tails, and Otsutsuki. I'll share everything that I know. Next chapter in a month. It is a nice tease at the end that this guy who clearly knows a lot, he has been the guy who's been doing all of the, I suppose, experimentation, the operations, whatever way you want to call it, to alter the members of Kara. He knows what their, I suppose, abilities are. He probably is the one who will be able to fix whatever's wrong with Kawaki. He can tell them the details about Kara, Jigen, and especially the fact that he mentions Otsutsuki. He probably, of all the people, knows stuff about Otsutsuki that we don't know about, that he may know specifically some of the details on the karma mark, how it works, what the whole vessel kind of situation is. And I'm okay with that. If the next chapter is basically just Amado just revealing all this information, I'm perfectly fine with that, because that would make for an eventful chapter, finally catching us up to speed on the details of whatever's going on right now. Is this a trap? Is this real? Are members of Kara actually properly defecting? I'm not sure. This is where I think it is telling that they didn't do the Kashin Koji and Jigen fight at this point. In that, like, are they too in deep? Is that the problem? The members of, at least some of the members, are too in deep, and they're like, we don't agree with what Jigen or Ishiki wants to do. We're getting out of this now. We actually want to stop him. I'll defect to Konoha, tell them all the information, and give them the best chance to actually defeat him. Or is it just some gradual setup so that Amado can get closer to Kawaki and like alter him in some way under the guise of trying to fix him, and this is how Kawaki becomes the new vessel, or something like that? It's hard to know, because obviously we don't really know Amado that well, but it seems like it is an actual betrayal of some sorts, because he did shut down Delta to come here. He assisted to a degree Kashin Koji in telling him that like Jigen's only 10%. Now, I suppose we'll find out once we actually get to see Jigen's response to being confronted by Kashin Koji if it's true. Like, what if Amado lied and actually Jigen's back to full, strength? That could be a sign, but I don't think they're going to do that, because they do, I think, are setting up some sort of reveal with Kashin Koji. Maybe it's the Jiraiya reveal. I don't know how well the Jiraiya reveal would work, though, if it's just like it's revealing just between Jigen and Kashin Koji himself that he is Jiraiya. In that, like, it will be a reveal just to us as the viewers. So they almost have to hold that one off until like he's in or around people who would have impact on. Unless they do want to reveal it to the audience first and then wait for him outing himself to like a Naruto or someone. I don't really know what exact approach that they want to do is. So yeah, like I said, it's an alright chapter. Like, there's some reveals here or there over the course of it, but for the most part, it's pretty to the point of like, okay, there's a problem with Kawaki. I think that was already more or less set up from before, but just the fact that it's still persisting now, even though Naruto's like awake and, fully fighting fit, I suppose, is interesting. And there's stuff that still needs to be resolved with Kawaki, just that there's a problem with the way his body's functioning right now with all the scientific ninja tools and so on. So okay, that's interesting. Okay, the other thing this chapter did was Amado is now defecting to Konoha and has brought cell fragments and data aggregate, and that he's going to do some work if he's allowed to in Konoha. Okay, we find out that Kashin Koji is maybe closer to Delta than we think, in terms of maybe having a cybernetic part of himself, more than just having scientific ninja tools in his body to assist with like healing and the general ability that all the Kara members seem to have. Okay, that's cool. Boruto's eye in the previous chapter was a Byakugan. That's a fair enough detail, but it's arguably the least interesting kind of reveal. Like, if she said it was like, oh, his eye was something different, it wasn't a Byakugan, it wasn't this, that would have confirmed to us it's the Jogan, which would have been much more interesting. But I think, like a lot of people have been kind of speculating, including myself, I actually called this one fairly early on, I think what they're going to do with Boruto's power is have the Jogan be the power that counteracts the fact that karma is a kind of negative ability, that it basically, when used to its maximum, it leads to you being possessed by an Otsutsuki. I think the Jogan in combination with the karma mark serves the ability of allowing Boruto to use both abilities to their maximum. I think that's what they're going to do, that the Jogan will counteract the negative aspects of what's going on here. Of like, if Momoshiki tries to actually properly take over forever, the Jogan will stop that. I think that's what they're going to do. I don't know how it's going to link into the whole destiny of like these blue eyes will take everything from you, but either way. I'm not sure if we're meant to take anything new necessarily away from the discussion that Mitsuki and Sasuke had. It really did feel like just a recap of like the information we already had, and just I suppose teasing the fact that like, yeah, what does it mean that Kawaki has a karma mark but no like Otsutsuki inside him? Like, what is that about actually? That it's just about learning the scope of that ability, which I suppose Amado will reveal to us at some point. But yeah, that's kind of really all there was. I just wish it was a little bit more impactful. Like, we waited a month for this, we're now going to have to wait another month for the next chapter, and like I said, primarily it was just a stopgap along the way. Everything that we want to know is next. What is the information that Amado has? What is the fight between Jigen and Kashin Koji going to be? Who is Kashin Koji? All these sort of things, it's like, just wait. We'll get them eventually. But when will that be? That's the sort of issue with the pacing, of like, you thought it was okay to end a very eventful chapter with a good cliffhanger with basically, yeah, we're not going to do that yet. That's not great in a monthly manga. So they're my thoughts on the chapter. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.